What's up, you guys? I'm Dan, this is Frugal Not Cheap, and today we'll review the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson. A friend of mine recently gave me this book with a hardcover sticker price of $35 and coming in at 615 pages. I blazed through it pretty quickly, and today I'll give you my thoughts. First though, you should know a little bit about me, the reviewer. I used to see Tesla news stories and headlines on the TVs mounted to the wall across from my trading desk on Bloomberg, and these tended to be generally quite negative. The first story that I have a real clear recollection of was one about Tesla trying to do some battery swapping, which I thought was a really interesting idea. I can't remember the exact timing, but sometime in 2018 or 2019 though, I came across a series on Elon Musk on the website Wait But Why. This is an informative, well-written, and quite funny series using a bunch of stick figures that taught me a whole lot about Elon Musk and his companies that I never would have picked up on just looking at the mainstream media headlines. After that, I got really excited about what he was doing, and in August of 2019, I became a very small-time investor in Tesla. As many of you know, I don't like to pick individual stocks. Instead, I favor broad market capitalization weighted index funds. But I did purchase 6 shares of Tesla at a cost of $1,323.93. So if you didn't know already, what I'm saying is that I'm a fan of Elon Musk and also that I'm a very, very small Tesla shareholder. So that's me. Who's the author? Walter Isaacson. He was educated at Harvard and also at Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. He was president of CNN and then became president of the Aspen Institute and most recently became a professor of history at Tulane. He's published quite a number of books or biographies about individuals, including Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, Henry Kissinger, Steve Jobs, and others. Now, as president of CNN, you can kind of guess his political leanings, but more on that later. Alright, now about the book. Isaacson followed Elon Musk for about 2 years, starting in August 2021, and the book was published in September of last year, 2023. Because of this, there's a real sharp shift in pacing. The first 368 pages of the book deal with the time before 2021, from his birth in 1971, and then the final 247 pages deal with roughly summer 2021 through spring of 2023. So that means that the first 60% of the book spans some 52 years, whereas the final 40% of the book covers just about 2 years. So this really can't be helped, but it is something that's very, very noticeable, unfortunately. And it also does, at least it made me wish that there could have been more of the same kind of detail that we get in the latter pages for some of the events in the earlier pages. The book, though, thankfully, is not in strict chronological order page by page, because that could end up being pretty boring. Instead, Isaacson wisely picks small narrative arcs. And these generally do in chronological order, but we might backtrack a little bit between one chapter and the next, although we are again moving generally forward in the timeline. But this way he's able to give you a complete little mini narrative as we go along, little arcs of the story. For instance, chapter 23, titled 2 Strikes, covers the first 2 failed launches of the Falcon 1 rocket by SpaceX. And then chapter 21, The Roadster, this spans 2004 to 2006 and details that project. Again, I really do think that this was a very wise choice, and the book reads much better by having these mini arcs rather than following a strict chronological order by page. I read the book quickly, and while it is 615 pages, I think I finished it in about a week. Now, the print is fairly large, and there are also some fairly wide margins as well. On top of that, as you can see here, there are quite a lot of pictures, generally below a chapter heading. I learned a lot. Now, I knew a lot about most of the major events in the story, having been, again, a big fan of Elon Musk and the companies that he's founded and the work that he's done. But some of it was new. Like, I didn't know about the early history of SpaceX and how the early launches were done on the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. But even the events that I did know about, Isaacson did a good job of fleshing them out, and especially adding a more personal note, because he did a lot of interviews and also, of course, corresponded with Elon. And so we get a lot more of really personal details and really a lot more about Elon Musk's personal life surrounding all of these different events. And what that did for me was really kind of humanize the story a whole lot more. We're not really just looking at sort of the story or a catalog of the achievements of the different companies. It's really more of a story about a person over time. And we also learn a lot about the people that were close to him and that worked with him. And so basically there's a really good human element that goes along with all of the facts, of course. One of the things that comes out here is a sense of who Elon seems to be based on what he says and what he does, and then also who Elon seems to be to other people based on their reaction to him and their interactions with him as well. At times, even Isaacson himself kind of seems to weigh in on the page, but this is relatively rare. I think he was generally quite careful about not pushing a certain angle on the narrative, and so I commend him for that. Although again, of course, I have my own biases coming into this, and so it might not read the same way for someone else that had a different understanding. The only sort of exception to this, or the one section where I thought a lot more of Isaacson shone through, was near the end of the book, actually. Here's where I found that he might have been unwittingly injecting his views a little bit too much into things. Particularly in two areas, one being the acquisition of Twitter, and then the other being the way that people tend to view Elon as being a jerk. So first let's talk about this jerk thing. A lot of people have called him a jerk and an a-hole and what have you. But at least for me, reading through all of the different things that he's done, most of the things that Isaacson seems to, or other people that he talked to, seem to consider Elon as being a jerk for, is really just being more mission-oriented and results-oriented than thinking about people's feelings. And so I think, especially in sort of his capacity is leading these businesses and trying to get things done very quickly and trying to get people to do things that are viewed as being impossible. I think that, it seems kind of fairly reasonable. The one area where I do think that he was quite inconsiderate was in the way that he kept a secret from his then girlfriend Claire Boucher, also the mother of a couple of his children, surrounding him being the genetic father of Siobhan's children. So this part, one I didn't know about, and also certainly I think that was an uncool thing to do. So this is probably the most egregious thing that I saw in the book, regarding his behavior. All right, so back to Twitter, which of course is now called X. I want to be fairly careful here because obviously we're delving a little bit into the realm of politics, and my goal for this channel is really just to entertain and promote financial literacy, and then also talk about some other interesting stuff that I'm excited about. And of course, politics is an area that is polarizing and divisive, and I wouldn't want to alienate anyone. But I do think it's clear in the section where Isaacson is talking about Musk's takeover of Twitter and his struggle with freedom of speech versus freedom of reach and censorship and all of these ideas, it was clear where Isaacson's views lay. I guess some things are really very, very difficult to talk about without, revealing one's position on them. So that was really the only part of the book that rankled a little bit for me, which is a bit unfortunate because it did add a little bit of a sour note to the end of the book. But nevertheless, I would still heartily recommend the book to anyone that's interested in learning more about Elon Musk and his life, about making life multiplanetary, about developing brain-machine interfaces, about electric vehicles, and about boring tunnels. So I hope you found that review helpful. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.